Okay, so now I gotta figure out where I was. I did this one, I know. I don't think I did that one. I didn't do that one. So, again, I'm working this way. Line up again, now I gotta kind of reset my angle. I get my arms so that I'm keeping a consistent angle. Go like such. Notice that now I'm getting back to where I got my little Sharpie marks on these 4 teeth. Okay. Do you have to use this metal guide thing that I have on here? Do I have to use that? No, I could use a normal round file. You can use, there are different types of guides. I personally found this one years back and I like it. It works for me. So, gentlemen, I just did 1/2. Now I roll it around. I go to here. This side I can set it a little bit closer to my motor. And 1, 2. I can feel already. Right now in 2 swipes, there wasn't hardly any resistance. Which means these part of the teeth on here, they wear out. It's a file. They wear out in time. So I give this a little rotation. Okay, maybe just to expose some new teeth to it. And because those 2 felt kind of wimpy, I give that one extra one. 1, 2. Oh, I didn't probably talk about this as much as I should. The pressures right now that I'm exerting are in. Okay, I'm trying to keep that angle consistent, but I'm pushing in, but I'm also slightly pulling up. Think about how this tooth is designed, and actually I'm going to point that out in just a sec. So I did the one next to my hand. So if you ever hit anything like a rock, a nail in a tree trunk or something, you ever hit anything that really wrecks your teeth, you either have to like throw away your chain, or the other alternative is, yeah, you could do this forever. Like you could keep doing this over and over and over and over. But your time is probably better spent to bring it to somebody that has a motorized sharpener. And nowadays, motorized sharpeners aren't that expensive. The only reason that I don't personally own one is I can be just as fast. Did you guys time me? For all the times that I started, that took minutes, right? It's not that in depth. So for some people, they prefer the motorized ones, and what that is it's kind of like a 4-inch grinder. It's mounted on a little thing that looks like a miniature chop saw almost, and you set the angle accordingly to match these. And when you run that in, so actually you would mount it in here, and it would cut. It actually would cut down, and it would leave this. So now I'm gonna have you guys get a little bit closer again. I want you to look at the geometry. Try to look perpendicular to one of these teeth. Trying to set it where we can. But I'm gonna draw this on the board. A tooth, gentlemen, and I'm gonna start it off back. A chainsaw tooth, gentlemen, looks something like so. Okay, I know my drawing isn't perfect, but you get the picture of what I have drawn. What's doing the cutting? This one point right here. What's the purpose of this? Maybe I made that a tick too high. For dramatization, I will make it a little lower. What's the purpose of that?
So it doesn't kick back. So it doesn't kick back. Or less
That's
like
part of
that.
it.
How big of a bite it takes.
It's how big of a bite it takes. And both of these guys are right. So these are called, you're gonna hear like people, the proper people in the chainsaw worlds, are gonna call that a depth gauge, okay? On these, you see how that depth gauge is a piece of steel that's rounded over, okay? And what it does is then that rides on the wood. So right now, if I slide my finger, I'm gonna be careful, but I slide my finger on there and it's gonna catch and it's only gonna take off that certain amount, okay? So if these are in succession, and then the next one, the point is something like so, okay? And the hook, and then your depth gauge is down here. Something like so, okay? What it's doing, gentlemen, is it's actually cutting that amount. That's your depth of cut. So in all reality, like on a skill saw, if you were to set your table on a skill saw, your base, if you were to set that just a 1/4 of an inch deep and run it across something, you're just gonna run a little 1/4 inch groove across it, right? That's kind of what this is doing, but that chain's revolving super rapidly, and that's what it is. What did I call these? Like,
Depth
I
gauge.
think.
Depth gauge.
I think I actually said it. Depth gauge is what proper chainsaw people are gonna call them. Most of the time, layman's terms, you're gonna hear people call it a raker, okay? So, one thing that it does is what these two guys just said. Yes, it helps from kicking back because it's not taking too big of a bite, okay? So it's setting the amount that it's gonna cut. Secondly, what it does is it actually rakes those chips out of there, okay? So they rake away the chips and clean that groove out better. Does that make sense? So, now I want everybody to look at these a little bit. Everybody don't look at the end teeth, like forget everything on the end. Only look at where the bar is straight. And see how they're angled back. So as this tooth gets sharpened, I'll just use this one tooth right here as my example, and I'm gonna steal William's pen and point it out. This tooth gets sharpened and it slides back, okay? Slides downhill. So as it slides downhill, you have to file a little bit off of these depth gauges, off these rakers. Does that make sense? I have a gauge. I didn't bring it. It's such a minuscule part of it that I only hit my rakers probably, I don't know, every 5-10 times that I sharpen my saw. And it's just as fast as I went around. And legitimately, what you do is you put your depth gauge on there. And usually I take kind of a smaller file, something like this that will fit in there. And I set my depth gauge, and the depth gauge is a piece of metal that sits on this tooth, and this tooth, and this tooth. It like spans over 4 teeth. And then I'll just hit, and it will actually physically file off that amount. I've heard of old timers years ago that they just used to hit it one pass, one swipe with a file every time that they sharpened. It's to each their own, but again, that comes back to what I started off saying. You guys have more information at your fingertips than any generation or any group of people before you. YouTube it. Watch 2 videos, 3 videos on sharpening saw if you're not familiar with it, and you YouTube it, and you will come up with like a technique that works for you. Is that fair enough? Questions on that? All right. That is chainsaw sharpening in a nutshell. On here, again, this is the tooth. This is the raker, okay, or your depth gauge. This part, you heard me say it a couple times, but what do we call this part? A bar, okay? That bar is comprised of, it's just a piece of steel, and there's a groove in it all the way around. And there's a little more to it, but yeah, that's that. A chainsaw, when you break it down, I don't want to like push this into William's face, but when we break it down, that's all the bigger that motor is, okay? Like the other day when we had that even smaller chainsaw, and we compared, like, this is an engine block, okay? So that one is, this one is like 61 to 63 cc's, it's called. This, to bring it full circle back to what we were talking previously in the class, is air comes in, right? This is a what type of motor is this? Two-stroke, okay? So again, this is like a review, but so this is a two-stroke motor. Air's coming in here. It's going in through the carburetor to the combustion chamber, and then right here is the exhaust. Okay, this is the muffler, and it's exhausting that way. When this thing spins, can you guys see the flywheel? Okay, there's the flywheel turning in there. Okay, so the flywheel's on this side. So our power takeoff side is over here. And this needs a solid cleaning, and I want to pull that air filter off, but I don't want to pull the air filter off with it being that dirty. I'd like to blow it off and get some of that stuff removed before I go too nuts with blowing it off. So with that, I'm gonna slap this on just because I really want to blow that off, and I don't want to do it until I can get that blown off. Right here's your clutch. We haven't talked about clutches in here much. Chase, how do you want to throw out for a basic, what is a clutch? Give me. You're the independent student in here. Give me your synopsis of what you think a best way to describe a clutch. I'm gonna say it's a mechanical mechanism.
Usually spring assistance.
A spring-assisted mechanical mechanism. That's all that you got? Okay.
It doesn't always spin.
What?
It doesn't always spin.
Okay. So here's how that crankshaft is always spinning, right? We talked about motors. We talked about like your rototiller, your lawnmower blade's always spinning, right? Right? Okay. On here, that crankshaft's always spinning. Is this chain always turning? No, it's not. When I hit the throttle, ring, ring, it goes up in speed, okay? It engages what's called a clutch, okay? The centrifugal force, a lot of times, but he says there's springs, there's different things with clutches. We're not getting into huge in depth with clutches. But point being, a clutch more or less takes rotational power, and it engages it when it gets to a certain RPM, okay, when it gets to a certain point of turning. So what you saw earlier, that I was waiting for Chase to talk, but what you saw is I loosened these two nuts, okay? Then I loosened this, and this is, if you guys look close, when I crank it this way, you're seeing the chain belly down more onto the table. If I crank it this way, that chain is tightening up, okay? So this is the chain tensioner. Every chainsaw is gonna have it in a slightly different place, okay? Some of them are gonna be on the side, some of them are gonna be buried in between these two nuts. Sometimes this cover only has one nut. Sometimes it is actually down here, and it runs this, like you have to run your screwdriver this way. I live by these little guys because whether it's the big nut on my steel chainsaw or the little nuts on these, or these also fit your spark plugs, they're just very convenient. I'm just taking them off. Let me get to that point, okay? Needs a solid cleaning, hardcore. But that's the clutch, gentlemen. So when this thing's spinning in here, okay, when this thing's spinning, right now that way, see how this isn't going? Okay, the outside is not going, okay? But then when it gets to a certain RPM, then this would go, and now you can see that that's driving the chain. Okay, it's attached. The way a bar works. The way a bar works is most of them are similar in this design mechanism, and this right here, there's usually a little hole. If you guys can see, I know that this is super gunky right now, but right there, that little hole, or on this side, this little hole, this port right up here, get this where everybody can see, that port right there is connected to the bar and chain reservoir. When you look on this side, this one holds your gas, and this is, I don't want to say this is always the case, because then you guys will be like, well, you got a chainsaw at home that something's in a different location. Yeah, I'm not playing the always game. Almost everyone, or I think everyone that I've ever used, the one closer to the handle and the throttle is gas. Then over here, this reservoir is for oil, and that is bar and chain oil. That is not motor oil. Bar and chain oil. And gentlemen, bar and chain oil has one job, and it is purely to lubricate this, okay? It's to lubricate that chain and this bar. Tell me out of here. 52. Okay. So that's that. So what I want to point out, because I can right now, that oil comes out of this little reservoir through this little port, the one that's got the little rubbery stuff. And it goes into, right here, it goes into that hole or this hole. Chainsaw bars are designed to either run like this, upside down, or right side up. So just because the writing is up or down, doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. What else about chains? Bars. Periodically, you guys see how the metal wears off, like the paint wears off of here and here? Periodically, I actually go through with my bars and I will file these, because as this bar, you know, think of this chain running on here all the time. It's running when you're sawing or whatever. It's gonna wear this metal off. And when it wears this metal off, the top kind of mushrooms over. So in the middle, that groove is gonna get worn out and remain smooth and free flowing nicely, because of your chain running in it. But the outside gets like curled over. So it's not a bad idea to hit that with a file periodically, every once in a while. Fair enough. Other than that, as far as chainsaw maintenance, sharpening I like to hit on with students. This should all get blown out really well, periodically. And then what I actually used to like to do, but now that I've gotten busy and I got kids and I'm in 1,000 different things, I used to actually coat them with a silicone spray. I wouldn't get it on my handles, but I would spray silicone spray on the inside of this, outside, or inside of them, outside of them. I would clean this off super good, like I was gonna put it back in a showroom, and then I would dust it with silicone spray. I wouldn't get this recoil handle. Definitely don't get this handle, and definitely don't get your handle back here, because for safety purposes, obviously you want a good grip on it. But if you guys have ever sprayed silicone spray on anything, it gets super slippery. And the biggest thing is, like, if you spray it on the inside of here, this gunk is less apt to stick. Does that make sense? It's kind of like putting oil in your pan before you cook, because then you're trying to keep that from sticking. Fair enough? Questions? So, here's what I need you to do. You guys got any questions about this? Other than that, I would take an air nozzle of this, I would blow this off, try to clean it up the best that we can, and that is kind of my like monthly or a couple times a year maintenance to a chainsaw. Cool? You can kill that.